Hello, my name is Tolu, and you're listening to the International Educator Advice and Stories on Tolu Travel Teach. International Educator Stories and Advice is an interview series for educators and professionals to ask and get answers to questions we might have. Each guest shares a professional story on how they got to where they are now and where their next stop is. Then, I get to ask questions that any educator or professional can use to develop themselves professionally and personally. Our next guest is Jennifer Calandra.
My name is Jen, and I'm from Long Island, New York. I grew up with my mom, with a single mom. My parents were together until I was about 16, and then they divorced. My mom was a teacher, so I come from a family of educators, and I have two sisters and a younger brother.
Awesome. And what is your professional story?
Okay. So growing up, I was a really sensitive child, to the point where when my mom went on maternity leave for my sister, I cried every day that I didn't want to go into school by myself. My mom worked at the same private school that I went to as a child at pre-K. And I was super, super sensitive. I had very low confidence, but I had a really good heart. And I remember being driving in the car with my mom and seeing like a homeless person on the side of the street and being like super upset about it and asking like tons of questions. And my mom was like, well, this is just how it is, you know? And I kept like thinking about that, and I felt like other kids my age didn't really pay any mind to that kind of thing. And so I went through high school and went to college and chose sociology as my major, and figured, what am I going to do with sociology? I wasn't really sure, but I really liked one of my professors. She was amazing, and she actually was the person that influenced me to go into social work. So I decided to keep going, and I got my master's in social work, and I started interning. It was a 2-year program, graduate program, and I interned at a homeless shelter, and I also interned in a school. And so that kind of led my path. After getting my master's degree, I thought to myself, I love New York, but I'm ready to kind of see what else is out there. And I moved down to Florida, and I got my first professional job out of college, and that was working in child protection. And I did that job for 3.5 years in Tampa, Florida, and it was one of the most stressful jobs, but I learned so much. After 3.5 years, I said it's time. Let me see what else is out there. It's a very time-consuming job, plus you're dealing with, abused and neglected children, and it really takes a toll on you emotionally. It's a fatiguing type of job. And I started writing comprehensive behavioral assessments. So these were on children that had been removed from their home, either through the Department of Juvenile Justice or because they were abused or neglected, they were placed out of the home. And they were required by the state of Florida to have these assessments done. So basically, it was just their entire history from birth through present time. So you would review medical records, school records. I would interview the biological parents if I could find them. I would interview the foster parents or whoever they were placed with. I would interview the child, and I would make recommendations on maybe the child needed counseling services. Maybe the child hasn't been to a dentist their entire life. And so these were all recommendations we would make, and then the caseworker who was assigned to the case would then have to say, okay, this child needs to get these services. I did that job for about a year, and I got very, very, it helped me with my writing skills, my diagnostic skills. I was under the supervision of a licensed clinical social worker, and I enjoyed it, but it took me out of, I felt, because you work on your own so much, I felt like I was missing out on I enjoy being social with people. I like working as a team. So I decided to go and apply for a job as a school social worker in Osceola County, which is in Kissimmee, Florida. And I worked there for 6 years, and I was in charge of 6 schools a week. So I actually, 4 elementary schools, 1 middle, 1 high school. We were itinerant because there was only 8 of us social workers for the district. So we were spread pretty thin. And I did that job for 6 years. I loved it. And then I had the opportunity to come and move to Dubai. And I started working in the international schools.
Wow.
I've been here 6 years. And in between that time, I also went and I studied for my the exam to become licensed, and I became a licensed clinical social worker. So I have my license in the state of Florida and in New York, and I make sure I keep that current. Yeah.
Awesome. You know, you just mentioned how you like to be social, and there's two different types of jobs that you've done. One, very independent, and you have to be focused and, you know, get your work done.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of self-control and
discipline.
Yeah. How were you successful in that role, you know? And then when you moved on to your team, what skills did you need to work well on a team? And what do you suggest for others, those skills that you need either to be an independent worker and that self-discipline? What kind of routine did you build for yourself?
Yeah.
And then how do you play well on a team with other driven individuals?
Okay, so in regards to when I worked independently doing the assessments, so the first thing is I had to be highly organized because I had deadlines. So I would be given like 3 cases to work on, let's say for a month, and it might be three separate kids that I'm working on. So now I'm reviewing school files for 4 kids, right? And I only have 1 month. So I always had to organize my time properly and not wait to the last minute, because if I had to schedule interviews, I can't assume that I called the day before and someone's going to say, oh yes, you can come to my house tomorrow. So in the beginning of the month, okay, these are my cases. I had all my appointments scheduled. So you just had to be very highly organized and quite flexible too. And then not procrastinate, because it's very easy. Once I had all my information, then I was typing these reports from home, and they were massive reports. And there are times where I'd rather go clean my bathroom than write, right? We've all been there. But I have to give myself little goals. Like, okay, I'm going to work on this section for 2 hours, and then I'm going to take a break. And so I just did what worked for me to make sure my reports were done on time. Because obviously that was part of the job, right? Like I had time. I had deadlines. In regards to working with others, so what's really important is being able to form positive relationships with people. That's what life is about, is forming relationships with people. At least that's what I think. And you have to be open-minded. Just because I do something a certain way doesn't mean that's the right way and that's the only way. And so I've done a lot of self-reflection throughout my professional career and in my personal life about things that I'm like, okay, yeah, just because I believe it that way, it should be this way, or I work in this way, doesn't mean that what someone else is doing is anything less. So I just think that the ability to form relationships with people and have that, that feeling like I can work with this person because I'm open-minded and I listen and I have good communication skills and attitude as well. Just even when we're not speaking, right? The way we sit at a meeting or we're sitting around a table, you give off messages, right?
So what is a way that how would you arrange your body if you were in, let's say, a very tense meeting? You know, like what is something you do right before you walk into the door, knowing that you're going to a tense meeting, maybe an upset parent or someone who is emotionally unstable? Like how do you present yourself in that?
So for me, and I'm going to reflect on when I meet with parents or even students here at school, I tend to not sit across from people. So if it's a student that's upset, I sit next to them. I get up from my desk. I don't have a parent come in and have them sit here or move there, and I'm sitting in the bigger chair. I come and sit at the table with them, next to them. If it's a meeting that I know is going to be quite tense, I make sure I give myself a little pep talk before I go in, and I have to be very aware of my facial expressions because you can read my face, and I know in the past I've gotten a lot better at that. As if I'm feeling a certain way, you won't know because my face is still very professional, and so yeah.
That's awesome. Those are like really great tidbits because people struggle with that. You know, like everyone's like, I can't control my face. I'm going to control my mouth, but I can't control my face. But really, they're reading everything.
The face is very telling because I know for me, I'm so observant, and I'll be in a meeting and I observe, even like a faculty meeting, I look around and I can see, I'm like, I pick up on things.
Yeah.
And it's about, the way that we're expressing our faces, yeah.
Awesome. Those are some really important skills. Do you see that you use those skills internationally as well? This is like an international setting. Is there anything that you had to change moving from the States to international circuit to adjust with the culture?
I definitely can tell you that I have a lot more patience than I have. Coming from New York and just the way I was raised, I'm very, I expect things done. Like, I'm very efficient. Like, I'm a hard worker, and that's not always the case. Living internationally, things kind of get done on their time, and I've had to accept that like, that's okay. It's a struggle, but I've been able to adapt. What was the question?
So did you have to deal with any other skills on the international
So being
cultures?
more culturally sensitive,
Yeah.
for sure. That's something that I've always done in my career, but because here, especially working in an international school, we have like, I think 90 different nationalities here, and so everyone is so different. And so I've actually enjoyed that, though. I haven't really found it challenging sometimes and I'll give an example. When maybe I have a parent that we know their child needs some extra services outside of school, but and maybe one parent's on board, but the other parent isn't because it's not something they believe in, and they come from a culture where it's kind of taboo to have your child, and not so much label, because we're not labeling, but if my child is going to see a therapist or my child needs this, it's just not accepted. And so then things kind of come to a standstill, and at the end of the day you have to respect the parents' beliefs, and the best we can do is manage the child in school and support them as much as we can. Yeah.
Wow. Speaking of children, what is a piece of advice you would give to like a cousin or a niece or nephew, an adult niece or nephew that is just entering into the work field?
Okay, so when I think about that, I think about my nephew who's only entering middle school, and every time I see him in the summer and I tell him the same thing, and he's such a lovely boy, my sister's amazing and my mom is too, and I feel like he's surrounded by good people, but I always say, like, since he's young, what I always tell him is be kind to everyone. That's all I want, is be kind to everyone. You don't know what people are going through. People come to work and people come to school with smiles on their faces, and really you have no idea what they're going through. And people go through struggles. And I always used to say to him, I used to drill into his head, like, if there's a child that you see doesn't have a friend, or he looks a little bit different, or she's a little bit acts a little bit differently than you and your friends, don't leave that person out. Be the person that goes over and says, hey, are you okay, or come join us. Be that person. And so even as an adult going in, I just think be kind to people, because they're going to remember that.
I literally just posted on my Facebook, they're not going to remember what you said, but how you made them feel.
100%.
Yeah, it's
100%.
Very great advice. What is something that you enjoy doing?
Okay, so something that's really important to me is actually having like a healthy lifestyle. And we all consume ourselves with work, right? Even when we leave work, we're constantly thinking about it. And I think it's really important to have a balance. And I try really, really hard. I don't think that's being selfish. I think that we have to take care of ourselves before we can really help other people. So I really enjoy being fit. So I go to the gym probably about 5 to 6 days a week. I put my music on. It's my time. I don't want to socialize. I put on like really good hip hop that I love, and I do my workouts. So I like being active. I like being outside. I like the beach when it's not too hot. Hanging out with friends. And I'm not the type of person that likes to go to like fancy restaurants. I like super casual, like whatever works for everyone. I just want to enjoy time with my friends and just be around people.
Yeah. Something someone else said was that it's not the things that you buy, but the experiences that you have.
100%. And being international has taught me that so much. Living in the States, I was living in Florida. I think I went on a cruise once to Mexico. That was like the majority of my travels. And having this opportunity to live overseas, I will not ever trade this for anything, because it's the experiences, the people that I've met from everywhere. I love learning about their culture, the friends that I've made that have become family, and then the places I've been able to travel when I'm like, oh my gosh, you experience all these things that you never knew existed. Yeah, and it took me out of the bubble, the American bubble.
Yeah, definitely. And I liked how you said you couldn't even imagine these places, like you didn't know they existed.
No.
It's always shocking to me, just like driving out by the dunes and just being amazed by how big they are, how beautiful they are, and it's just hot sand, Yeah. It's so amazing. What is a place that you suggest anyone should go?
That's so difficult, because I've been to so many countries that, like, I don't even have a favorite. I mean, I have Italy. I loved because we took my mom. I guess I'm just thinking, I'm linking the country or the place to a memory, right? So a couple of years ago, we took my mom for her birthday. We did a huge family trip to Italy, and we spent about 12 days. And it was just amazing just to be with we've never done a family trip since I was like a kid. And so that was awesome, because Italy is just gorgeous. But I mean, I've been to Spain, I've been to Bali. They're all so different that I can't say, like, this is the place I recommend. I just go out and explore, and yeah.
That's cool. What is a life-changing moment in your life that was amazing and defined you?
So that's a hard one, because there's been so many, and I don't know if there's been many life-changing events in my life. I don't know if I would say they were amazing, but they've defined me, and so I'll take it, even though it might have been a rough experience. And I'll talk about, for example, when my parents divorced. So as a 16-year-old kid, that was really hard. And there was a lot of anger that, of course, when I reflect back as an adult, I'm like, wow, I was an angry teenager. At the time, you don't realize, like, why you're maybe making some of the decisions that you are. But being raised by my mom, she's such a strong woman. She raised all four of us on her own, and because of her, I am who I am. I'm strong, I'm independent, I have a high work ethic, and I'm super empathetic and nurturing, and that's my mom. And so that defined me. It wasn't an amazing experience, but the outcome's pretty amazing. Yeah.
And I'm sure she would be so proud to hear that you're her.
Yeah.
She's your inspiration. What books would you give to other people, or what are some podcasts that you?
Well, I love TED Talks. And usually when I go to bed at night, I know you're not supposed to be on your phone, but I usually always watch one. So that's kind of my thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. I hope you come back, because I'm hoping to do a TED Talk next year. So we'll just invite you back.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, that would be so awesome. Awesome. And so I have two more questions.
Okay.
One is kind of a lot of people have been giving me some interview questions or answers to this question. So decide which one you want. The first one, how do you define failure? Mm-hmm. And then the last one would be, what is a purchase under $100 US that you're so proud that you made and that you wouldn't trade?
Okay, so I'm only answering one of these?
Yeah.
Okay,
whichever.
So I'll answer the first one. How do you define failure? For me, because we all fail in life. I mean, and I don't, even when I think about some of the decisions that I made that I'm like, it's not really a failure because you learn something from it, but I think once you give up on something, it's considered a failure. Like, once you decide, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, you have something in mind, you have a goal in mind, but you're not even going to try because you're like, it's so far-fetched, I can't do it. To me, that's failure because you're not trying. The minute you decide in your head, like, oh no, it's so out of my realm, I can't, and I'm not even going to, that's failure to me. when you try something and it doesn't work out, to me that's not failure. I don't really use that word, actually.
What would you use?
It just didn't work out. Next, what's next? Let's look for the next solution. Or what's plan B? What's plan C? What's plan D? That's how I try to have an outlook on things, because we're not always going to succeed in everything. We might have our mind, I might say, okay, I'm interviewing for this job, and and I don't get the job. Does it mean I'm a failure? No. It just, okay, there's something else then. What's the next step? Or what do I need to do then in the future to maybe gain that position? So that's how I kind of look at things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else that you would like to say, or like as you're leaving Dubai, really? Like, what is something that, as you reflected on, is just on your mind?
Well, so I've been here 6 years, and I would never, like I said, I would never trade this experience for anything. I have grown so much, not just professionally, but on a personal level, living abroad. And it's because of the connections I've made with people, the relationships, and just experiences that I've been exposed to that I wouldn't if I would have stayed in the States. And as much as it's a difficult decision to head back to the U.S., and it's like starting from scratch again. And, talking about failure, a part of me is like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to live with my family until I find a job, and then I feel like I'm going backwards. And I'm like, no. If someone else was going through this situation, I would say, of course you have to go home and live with your family until you get on your feet. Like, you're moving back to your home country. That's okay. That's not failing. Sometimes I think we're a little bit hard on ourselves, but I'm just trying to keep a positive outlook, because I know, things will work out. But it's bittersweet to leave here. It's definitely bittersweet. I just know it's my time, but yeah, it was a hard decision to make, and I will miss living over here for sure.
Awesome. We're going to miss you too. All right. Thank you for sitting down.
You're welcome.
Thank you, listeners, for listening to another episode of the International Educator Stories and Advice. If you have more questions for Jennifer about international counseling, or if you're interested in becoming a counselor, leave a comment below so we can follow up with you. If you enjoyed the episode, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.